My finger hovered over the delete button, but it was already too late. The message had been delivered, the tiny blue checkmark mocking me from the bottom of my screen. My pulse hammered so hard I could feel it in my throat, and I actually gasped out loud, my phone nearly slipping from my trembling hands. The photo I'd meant to send to Maya, my best friend, showing me in nothing but a silk robe barely covering my body with a caption that read, "Feeling myself tonight," had just landed directly in the inbox of Victoria Sinclair, my boss. My impossibly gorgeous, completely unattainable, and now probably disgusted boss. I wanted to throw myself off my balcony. Hey, before we go any further, drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. And please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow, and trust me, you'll want to stick around for how this story ends. Let me back up so you understand just how catastrophic this moment was. I'd been working at Sinclair Marketing for exactly 4 months, and every single day felt like walking through a minefield of attraction and professionalism. Victoria wasn't just my boss. She was the kind of woman who made you forget how to breathe when she entered a room. Tall, with dark chestnut hair that fell in perfect waves past her shoulders, sharp green eyes that seemed to see straight through any excuse or explanation, and a presence that commanded attention without her ever raising her voice. She wore tailored suits that probably cost more than my monthly rent, and she had this way of tilting her head slightly when she listened to you that made you feel like you were the only person in the entire world. I developed what I can only describe as a hopeless, ridiculous, utterly unprofessional crush on her approximately 3 days after my first team meeting. But Victoria was untouchable. She was the founder and CEO of one of the most successful boutique marketing firms in Boston. She had a reputation for being brilliant but distant, kind but reserved, and she maintained clear professional boundaries with everyone. I'd never seen her at happy hours, never heard gossip about her personal life, and certainly never imagined she'd be interested in someone like me. I was just Alexis Chen, junior account coordinator, fresh out of grad school with student loans that would outlive me and a tiny apartment in Allston with a radiator that clanged like a haunted ship at night. We existed in completely different universes that just happened to overlap for 8 hours a day in a glass office building near Faneuil Hall. And now I'd sent her a photo that left absolutely nothing to the imagination. I stared at my phone, watching those 3 little dots appear under her name, indicating she was typing. My entire body went cold. I imagined the HR email that would arrive tomorrow, the awkward exit interview, the humiliation of having to explain to my parents why I'd lost my dream job after only 4 months. The dots disappeared, then appeared again. I actually whimpered. When her message finally came through, I had to read it 3 times before my brain could process the words. "That's quite a surprise to receive at 9:30 on a Thursday night, Alexis. I'm assuming this wasn't meant for me." One typed and deleted about 7 different responses. Each one sounded worse than the last. Finally, I managed, "Oh my God, Victoria, I am so incredibly sorry. That was absolutely meant for my friend Maya. I'm mortified. Please delete it immediately. I completely understand if this violates company policy and we need to discuss consequences." The dots appeared almost instantly. "Take a breath. I'm not going to fire you over a misdirected photo. Though I have to admit, I'm curious who Maya is and what she did to deserve that particular image." I blinked at my screen, completely confused by her tone. It sounded almost playful, which made no sense. Victoria was never playful. She was professional, composed, occasionally warm during performance reviews, but never playful. I decided honesty was probably my only option at this point. "Maya's my best friend from college. She's been trying to convince me to put myself out there more, dating-wise." I was joking around, trying to prove I could be confident and flirty. Clearly, my execution was flawed. Her response came faster this time. "Your confidence wasn't the problem." The execution was just misdirected. Then, after a pause that felt like an eternity, she added, "For what it's worth, Maya would have been very impressed." My heart did something complicated in my chest, something between a flip and a complete stop. Was Victoria Sinclair, my elegant professional, completely straight as far as I knew boss, flirting with me? That couldn't be right. I had to be misreading the situation. Maybe she was just being kind, trying to make me feel less embarrassed. I typed back, "You're being incredibly gracious about this. I promise it will never happen again." "That's a shame," she wrote. "I was hoping you'd send me the one you meant to take." I actually dropped my phone. It bounced off my couch cushion and landed face up on my coffee table, her message glowing in the dim light of my living room. My hands were shaking as I picked it up again and read her words a fourth time, then a fifth, trying to find some alternative interpretation that made sense. But there wasn't one. Victoria had just asked me to send her another photo. My boss, who I'd been secretly pining after for months, who I convinced myself was completely out of my league and probably heterosexual, had just asked me for a photo. I sat there for probably 10 full minutes, my mind completely blank except for a high-pitched internal screaming. Then I did something either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. I got up, walked to my bedroom, adjusted the lighting, positioned myself in front of my full-length mirror, and took another photo. This one was more artful, the robe strategically placed, my expression less playful and more genuinely confident. I sent it before I could overthink it, with a caption that read, "The one I meant to take." This time, her response took longer. Long enough that I started to panic again, convinced I completely misread everything, and was about to make this situation infinitely worse. But then my phone buzzed with a FaceTime call. From Victoria. At 9:50 at night. I answered without thinking, and suddenly her face filled my screen, and I realized she was in her own apartment, not her office. She changed out of her work clothes into a soft gray sweater. Her hair was down and slightly tousled, and she was holding a glass of red wine. She looked more relaxed than I'd ever seen her, and somehow even more beautiful. "Hi," she said, and her voice was softer than her usual professional tone, almost gentle. "I thought maybe we should actually talk instead of trying to navigate this through text messages." "Hi," I managed, acutely aware that I was still in my robe, though I'd pulled it more securely closed. "I'm still not entirely sure what's happening right now." She smiled, and it was a real smile, not the polite one she used in meetings. "What is happening is that you accidentally sent me a photo that revealed something I've been trying very hard to ignore for the past 4 months. And instead of pretending it didn't happen, I'm choosing to be honest with you." She took a sip of wine, her eyes never leaving the screen. "I'm attracted to you, Alexis. I have been since your second week, when you stayed late to help Jeremy fix that presentation disaster, and you made some joke about marketing being just organized lying. You laughed at your own joke, and I thought it was the most genuine sound I'd heard in years. I couldn't breathe. I literally forgot how breathing worked. But you're always so professional. You never even look at me twice in meetings." "That's because I was looking at you significantly more than twice, and I was trying not to make it obvious," she said. "I'm your boss, Alexis. There are very real power dynamics at play here, and I never wanted you to feel uncomfortable or pressured. But your accidental message tonight made me realize that maybe I've been overthinking this. So I'm going to ask you a direct question, and I need you to answer honestly. Are you interested in me? Not as your boss, but as a person." "Yes." The word came out before I could filter it. "God, yes." I've been trying to convince myself it was just a stupid crush for months. Every time you explain a campaign strategy, I lose track of what you're saying because I'm too busy watching your hands move. When you complimented my work on the Henderson account, I went home and replayed it in my head about 50 times. I feel like an idiot every single day because I can barely form coherent sentences around you." She laughed, and it was the most beautiful sound I'd ever heard. "You form perfectly coherent sentences, Alexis. Brilliant ones, actually. That's part of the problem. You're talented and funny and genuine. And every time you walk into my office with coffee and that little nervous smile, I have to remind myself why getting involved with you would be complicated." "But," I asked, hearing the implication in her tone. "But maybe complicated doesn't have to mean impossible." She set down her wine glass and leaned closer to the camera. "Here's what I'm proposing. Tomorrow we go to work and we're completely professional. We don't mention this conversation, we don't act any differently, and we focus on the Mercer pitch that's due next week. But tomorrow night, after work, you meet me at Mistral at 7, not as your boss and employee. As two people who are interested in exploring whether this could be something real. No pressure, no expectations. Just dinner and conversation. What do you think? What did I think? I thought my entire world had just shifted on its axis. I thought I'd accidentally stumbled into the best possible outcome of the worst possible mistake. I thought Victoria Sinclair was even more incredible than I'd imagined. I think I'll be there at 6:55, I said. Her smile widened. Good. Now get some sleep and, Alexis? Delete that photo from your phone. Not because I didn't appreciate it, but because if anyone else saw it, I'd have to have a very awkward conversation about digital security policies. I laughed, finally relaxing slightly. Already done. See you tomorrow, Victoria. See you tomorrow. She ended the call, and I sat there staring at my blank screen, trying to process everything that had just happened. Then I screamed into a pillow for approximately 30 seconds, texted Maya a message that read "Emergency, call me now," and spent the next hour recounting every single detail of the conversation to her increasingly excited commentary. The next day at work was simultaneously the longest and shortest day of my professional life. Victoria was perfectly professional, exactly as she'd promised. She ran our morning meeting with her usual efficient precision, gave feedback on the creative briefs with her characteristically insightful observations, and only made eye contact with me exactly as much as she did with everyone else on the team. But I caught her glancing at me twice when she thought I wasn't looking, and once when I passed her in the hallway. She gave me the tiniest smile that nobody else would have even noticed. It felt like a secret, and it made my entire body warm. By 6:30, I was home and tearing through my closet trying to find something appropriate for dinner at Mistral, which I frantically Googled during lunch and discovered was one of the nicest restaurants in the South End. I finally settled on a dark blue dress that Maya had convinced me to buy last year for a wedding, simple but elegant, paired with the only pair of heels I owned that didn't make me look like I was playing dress up. I arrived at the restaurant at exactly 6:57, and Victoria was already there, standing near the host stand in a burgundy dress that made my mouth go dry. "You look beautiful," she said as I approached, and the way she looked at me made me believe it. "So do you," I replied, which felt inadequate but true. Dinner was everything I'd hoped it would be and nothing like I'd expected. We didn't talk about work at all. Instead, Victoria told me about growing up in Portland, about her parents who'd been college professors and had instilled in her a love of literature and debate, about how she started her company 7 years ago with nothing but a business plan and an alarming amount of optimism. I told her about my family in California, about my younger brother who was teaching English in South Korea, about how I'd almost gone to law school before realizing I'd be miserable. We talked about books and music and the ridiculous housing market in Boston. And it felt easy in a way I'd never experienced with anyone else. She was funny and self-deprecating and surprisingly nerdy about obscure marketing history, and I found myself falling for her even harder than I'd been before. After dinner, we walked along the waterfront, even though it was cold enough that we could see our breath. At some point, her hand found mine, and I interlaced our fingers without thinking about it. We stopped near a bench overlooking the harbor, and she turned to face me, her expression serious. "I need to be clear about something," she said. "If we do this, if we pursue this, it can't interfere with work. I won't give you special treatment, and I can't compromise the professional environment I've worked so hard to build. That means we'll have to be discreet, at least initially. And if at any point you feel uncomfortable or pressured, you have to tell me immediately. Your career and your comfort matter more to me than exploring this attraction." I nodded, appreciating her honesty even as part of me wanted to argue that I didn't care about any of that. "I understand, and I promise I'll tell you if anything feels wrong. But Victoria, I really want to try this. I know it's complicated and probably a little bit crazy, but I haven't felt this way about anyone in a really long time. Maybe ever." She reached up and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, her fingers lingering against my cheek. "Neither have I," she admitted. Then she leaned in and kissed me, soft and tentative at first, then deeper as I responded. Her lips were warm despite the cold air, and she tasted like the wine we'd had with dinner, and everything else faded away until there was nothing but her and this perfect moment. Over the next few months, we built something extraordinary in the spaces between professional obligations. We were careful at work, maintaining appropriate boundaries, and never letting our relationship affect our judgment or the team dynamic. But after hours, we existed in our own private world. She introduced me to her favorite bookstore in Cambridge, and I took her to the tiny dumpling place in Chinatown that I'd discovered during grad school. We spent weekends at her apartment in Back Bay, cooking elaborate meals and watching old movies. And she spent nights at my place even though my bed was half the size of hers and my neighbors were loud. We talked about everything, sharing the kind of intimate details you only reveal to someone you're starting to love. And slowly, carefully, we fell completely for each other. The secrecy was challenging sometimes. I wanted to tell everyone at work about her, to share the happiness that felt like it was glowing out of me. But we'd agreed to wait, to make sure this was real and sustainable before we navigated the complicated conversations with HR and the team. Victoria was adamant about protecting both my reputation and the company culture, and I respected her caution even when it frustrated me. About 5 months into our relationship, the Mercer campaign we'd been working on won a major industry award, and the company threw a celebration party at a venue in Seaport. Victoria gave a speech thanking the entire team, and when she mentioned my contributions specifically, her eyes met mine for just a second longer than necessary, and I saw everything she couldn't say out loud reflected there. After the formal portion ended and people started mingling, I found her alone on the balcony, looking out at the water. "Congratulations," I said softly, joining her. "You should be proud. This is a huge achievement." "We should be proud," she corrected. "You were essential to this campaign, Alexis. Your insights into the millennial consumer psychology were what made the difference." She glanced around to make sure we were alone, then added quietly, "I'm so proud of you. And I wish I could tell everyone in there that the brilliant junior coordinator who helped make this happen is also the woman I'm completely in love with." My heart stopped, then restarted at double speed. "You love me?" She turned to face me fully, vulnerability clear in her expression. "I do." I've been wanting to say it for weeks, but I was waiting for the right moment. This might not be it. But the truth is that there's never going to be a perfect time or a perfect setting. I love you, Alexis. You've made me happier than I've been in years, maybe ever. And I know this situation is complicated, but I don't care anymore. I want to be with you, openly, honestly. If you want that too. I want that, I said immediately. I love you too, Victoria. So much it sometimes scares me. She smiled, that beautiful, genuine smile that I'd come to treasure, and then she kissed me right there on the balcony where anyone from the party could have walked out and seen us. And I kissed her back, not caring about the risk, just feeling grateful for the accidental message that had started everything. A week later, we met with HR and officially disclosed our relationship, following all the proper protocols and procedures. Victoria recused herself from being my direct supervisor, and I started reporting to Marcus instead, which actually made my job easier in some ways. The team took the news surprisingly well. A few people admitted they'd suspected something, and Jeremy, my work friend, just laughed and said he'd wondered why we both suddenly become so much happier around the same time. That was 8 months ago. Now Victoria and I live together in a beautiful brownstone in South End that we found together, splitting the rent in a way that makes both of us feel comfortable. We still work at Sinclair Marketing, though I've been promoted twice and now lead my own accounts. We're still professional at the office, but we don't hide our relationship anymore. Our colleagues know that we leave together sometimes, that we spend weekends together, that we're building a life together. And sometimes when we're alone in our home, curled up on the couch with wine and takeout, Victoria will pull up that original misdirected photo on her phone, which she apparently never deleted despite her own advice to me, and she'll laugh and say that it was the best wrong message she'd ever received. And I'll kiss her and agree, grateful every single day for the mistake that led me to the love of my life. The photo that was meant for someone else ended up going to exactly the right person after all. All